If your child gets frustrated with scissors, cuts everywhere except the line, or refuses to cut at all, you're not alone. Most parents think the answer is simple: more cutting practice. But here's the surprising part. Learning to cut doesn't actually start with scissors. It starts with a group of smaller skills that children need to build first. And once you understand those skills, teaching your child becomes much easier and much less frustrating for both of you. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to build scissor skills step by step, explain why each stage matters, and help you avoid the most common mistakes parents make. Before we talk about activities, let's answer one important question. Why is cutting so difficult for young children? Because cutting isn't one skill. It's many small skills working together at the same time. Your child has to hold the scissors correctly, open and close them smoothly, keep their wrist stable, watch where they're cutting, move the paper with the other hand, control how much force they're using, and stay focused long enough to finish the task. And just like hand strength or coordination, the ability to focus is a skill that develops over time. It isn't something children either have or don't have. It grows through practice and age-appropriate activities. That's a lot for a young brain and body to coordinate all at once. Imagine learning to drive a car for the very first time. You're steering, checking mirrors, using the pedals, watching traffic, and road signs all at the same time. Cutting can feel very similar for a young child. So if your child struggles, it doesn't mean they are behind. It usually means one or more of these smaller skills are still developing. One of the most common questions parents ask is, what age should my child start using scissors? The answer is, there isn't one perfect age. Every child develops at their own pace, but there are helpful milestones. Around 2 to 2.5 years old, many children are ready to make their first supervised snips using child-safe scissors. Around 3 years old, many children begin cutting short straight lines. Between 4 and 5 years, they usually gain better control and can start cutting simple shapes. By around 4.5 to 6 years, many children can cut more detailed shapes with increasing accuracy. Remember, these are guidelines, not deadlines. Instead of asking, how old is my child? It's much more helpful to ask, does my child have the skills needed for this stage? That's what really matters. Here's the biggest mistake many parents make. They buy a workbook, hand their child a pair of scissors, and immediately expect them to cut along lines. But imagine trying to learn handwriting before you've ever learned how to hold a pencil. It wouldn't make much sense. The same is true for scissors. Children need to build the foundation first. Let's go through it step by step. Before children can control scissors, they need strong little hands. Opening and closing scissors requires strength in the small muscles inside the hand. If those muscles tire quickly, cutting quickly becomes frustrating. Simple everyday activities work incredibly well. Rolling Play-Doh, squeezing Play-Doh, pinching tiny pieces off, using clothespins, using kitchen tongs to pick up pom-poms or cotton balls, squeezing water from a sponge, using a spray bottle. These activities may not look related to scissors, but they're building the muscles your child will rely on later. That's why they work. Once your child's hands are getting stronger, it's time to introduce the movement itself. Many parents immediately start cutting paper, but paper adds another challenge. Instead, let your child simply practice opening and closing the scissors. No pressure, no lines, just becoming comfortable with the motion. Once that feels natural, move on to cutting small strips of paper. Why strips? Because your child only needs 1 or 2 closing motions to succeed. Success builds confidence. Confidence builds motivation. After paper strips, move to thick, short, straight lines. Avoid tiny lines. Avoid detailed pictures. Avoid circles. Straight lines allow children to focus on controlling the scissors instead of constantly changing direction. Keep practice sessions short. Around 5 to 10 minutes is usually enough for young children. It's much better to finish while your child is still enjoying the activity than continue until they're frustrated. Once straight lines become easy, you can introduce gentle curves. This is where another important skill appears. Most children naturally try to turn the scissors, but experienced cutters mostly turn the paper. One hand cuts, the other hand guides and rotates the paper. That's why cutting is considered a bilateral activity. Both hands have different jobs and need to work together smoothly. After curves, move to simple squares, large triangles, and finally circles. Circles are actually one of the hardest basic shapes because they require continuous movement and constant paper rotation. So don't feel like you have to start there. There's one thing parents often overlook: posture. Children cut best when their bodies are stable. Ideally, their feet are supported, their back is comfortably upright, their shoulders are relaxed, and their forearms can rest on the table. A stable body gives the hands a stable base to work from. If a child is sliding off the chair, reaching too high, or doesn't have support under their feet, cutting becomes much harder than it needs to be. Sometimes improving the sitting position makes an immediate difference. Let's quickly review the most common mistakes. Starting with difficult worksheets. Practicing for too long. Correcting every tiny movement. Expecting perfect accuracy too early. Skipping the activities that build hand strength. And comparing your child to other children. Remember, development isn't a race. The goal isn't to cut perfectly today. The goal is to build the skills that make cutting easier over time. If there's one idea I'd like you to remember from this video, it's this: cutting isn't one skill. It's many small skills working together. When you build those skills first, cutting becomes easier, more enjoyable, and far less frustrating. So before asking, "How can I get my child to cut better?" try asking, "Which skill might my child still be building?" That simple shift in perspective can completely change the way you teach. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing for more practical, research-based activities that help children build real skills through everyday play.